If you want to create an immersive experience in the cinema, the best way to do it is with stereoscopic imagery. If you shot 3D on film, it's very cumbersome, it's very bulky. We realized that the next film would be a digital-based production.
During a production of a film, there's a vast amount of data that can be generated. This data could be representing footage, video footage, could be representing still imagery, it could be representing script supervisor notes.
The problem going into a movie that was to be this digitally heavy was, how do people access all of this information? If we didn't have a way to manage this data, we couldn't make the movie. Years before we ever started production on Avatar, we started working with Microsoft to solve these problems. We created something we call Gaia. Gaia became the whole digital hub of the virtual production. It was the repository where everything resided.
The original requirement for Gaia was to build a digital asset management system capable of cataloging and archiving everything from concept art to final shots.
We didn't necessarily know what exactly we needed to build, but we knew it was going to be different than anything else we've done before.
Historically, one of the things that happens is the stuff just gets lost. It gets put on a disk and reviewed, and that disk gets lost or it gets put in a box. One of the biggest requirements when building an asset system is to protect that data.
So the security for the solution was key. The last thing we wanted to see was a shot from Avatar ending up on the internet and everybody talking about it. I'm pretty sure Jim would be rather unhappy if that ever happened. So if somebody were to request an image out of a system, the image would be watermarked and with information pointing directly back to the original requester.
One of the key elements of Gaia was what we call the stage app.
I like to call the stage app the court reporter of the stage.
It was basically an application built to automate the process that takes place on stage while the movie's being shot.
We would have a stage operator working in Gaia, and they would trigger all the events that went on the stage.
There's a lot of content being generated. There's the 2 stereo cameras, there's reference cameras.
All that stuff that we were putting away was immediately available downstream to the other applications like Maya and Motion Builder. It was immediately available in the system to be worked on in a lab upstairs by the artists.
It would take a universal time code so that all the computers were sharing the same data. It would track what takes were actually happening, what characters were in the scenes, what environments were being used.
What was important is that we're able to capture the information and piece it back together within Gaia so that when somebody would bring up a specific take or a specific scene, we'd be able to paint a complete picture and pull in all the reference footage and the videos and the imagery and all the script notes and everything else that went into creation of that piece of content.
Gaia was there and running in the backbone. It was not something that Jim was ever forced to learn or forced to interface with that would take away from him and his other tasks at hand.
We needed to simply act as a fly on the wall and just capture what happened, make sure that information was stored reliably and was easily accessible.
Gaia was it was effortless. Once it was running, it was always there. It's automatic. It was always on.
Films that we had worked on in the past were traditional films. You'd have a pre-production period, you'd have a production period, and you'd have a post-production period. On Avatar, all those lines got blurred. More importantly, though, Gaia became the hub for sending out information. This stage app fed information as we were working on a daily basis to all the different departments of what they needed to be working on. Being able to store and house this information right from the get-go in Gaia made it accessible no matter where people were working, whether they were working in production elements or post-production elements. We were able to provide actual assets to Coke, to McDonald's, to Ubisoft that made their processes more efficient and made what they were creating more accurate to what was actually in the movie.
A lot of times in film, departments are like islands. They do their own thing. They track things in their own way. They have their own repository of things, and getting that to change is a bit of an uphill battle.
Because we created this database at the beginning and we forced people to use it, they didn't have to go looking for a needle in a haystack. That needle came to them.
What happens when somebody spends, somebody who gets paid a fairly good salary spends 15 minutes of his day looking for something on an antiquated file system or in a desk drawer or looking for a CD with data on it, right? What happens when we take that away and it takes him, 0.8 seconds to find that thing? I think that's where the gain is.
Because we have Gaia and the database that it's created, that is going to be the foundation from which we begin any future Avatar projects.
All those environments were built, they're sitting in our system and they're ready to go for round 2. all the characters are ready to go, all the creatures are ready to go. So there's a potential savings there in that a lot of man-hours that went into creating the Banshee, for instance, don't need to be spent creating the Banshee.
It's going to put us way ahead of the curve starting the next production. What our goal would be to do the next movie more cost effectively and in a shorter period of time. I think that there's a lot of potential in cloud computing and what it can bring. When we would go on remote locations, it's very hard to access data. But as data becomes more critical to the operation of any production, we're going to need to find solutions that make that data available, and cloud computing is something that can greatly assist that. If we do another film like Avatar, Gaia is certainly going to play a very, very large role.
I think Gaia will be enormous in the next production. I think we've proven ourselves for sure. We had a retreat a couple months back where the idea was to go over what we had done and what we could do differently and what we could do better, and sort of just do a download of, sort of an information download from all the department heads. And before I even had an opportunity to speak, every department said, we're going to use Gaia, we're going to use Gaia, we're going to use Gaia.